So, good evening. So I'm here to talk a little bit about innovation in family businesses. I don't want to take too much time because we're really here today for a great case study, which I read actually in the Q&A. I do have a couple of questions, so I'm looking forward to the discussion. But I really just want to introduce a little bit some of the topics that will probably create a background for our conversation later. And I'll skip the boring slides. I want to just right in. I don't know how many of you really need to know this, but I was born in 1980. And I live in Abu Dhabi, but I work in Dubai. So I pretty much drive from Abu Dhabi to Dubai a couple of times a week. So it's 150 kilometers, you're all familiar with the distance, right? So if I drove my car in 1980 from home to Dubai, it would take about 20 liters of fuel to do this distance. And probably look like that ugly color. But if I drive the same car, or well, a contemporary car today, from Abu Dhabi to Dubai, the same distance only takes 11 liters of fuel. Sounds like a good improvement. Like it's an improvement in the performance of this technology by about 45%. Is it good? Sounds good? Quite good? I think you're all wrong. It's okay, of course, but when you want to talk about real improvement in performance, you want to talk about a different type of technologies. So think about 1980 again. In 1980, the best personal computer I could buy was the Apple II. The Apple II didn't have a hard drive. You could buy that separately. It would cost you about $25,000 in today's money. So you can imagine not many people have it. What we had instead was this. You remember this thing? The floppy disk reader? There's two there, right? So the top one, the smaller one, was not even there. That's the only photo I could find. So what we really had was this big, thin, broad floppy disk, the 5 1/4 inches disk. Now what did we do with it? We stored digital data on this support. How much did we store? So let's think about something tangible so it's easier to understand. Let's imagine I want to put digital music on one of these discs. The music we listen to today, like compact disc quality. How much music, what length of music could I store on one of these discs? Any guesses?
One or none.
One?
Or none.
Or none.
Are you talking about the
duration, the length?
512 floppy?
5 1/4.
30 seconds,
25 seconds, actually less than that. Really? Less than 25 seconds. Any other guesses? It's less than 15. You're getting closer, but it's still less. Anyone else? 5. Getting very close, but still too much.
1 second.
1 second. Almost. So one of these floppy disks has a capacity of 160 kilobytes. And 1 second of music is 176 kilobytes. So you couldn't even put 1 second. But in the same time span as car fuel efficiency improved 45%, the storage capacity of our digital devices, think about my phone, your phone, I can store 17 days of continuous music on this thing. So the improvement has been 1.5 million times. So if you thought that 45% was good, now you have to reconsider. Because at the same time, not only the performance of the technology has changed, the size of it, the price of it, this phone costs as much as the drive, the reader itself, the floppy disk reader alone. Get the whole computer. And everybody has one of these in their pocket, of course. Now, I'm not here to talk about the change in technology. This is not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the change in business models and consumption patterns that these things make possible. Imagine. What if the car fuel efficiency had improved at the same speed? How much fuel would it take to drive from Abu Dhabi to Dubai? Yeah, exactly. You can only do it with figures. You can't say the number is so small. Exactly. Okay? So, who would like to invest in a gas station? Of course there would be no gas stations. The technology would change, but that's not the main point. When fuel becomes so cheap, because transportation becomes cheap, because fuel efficiency increases, then some industries will be run differently. Think about logistics. How much does it cost to ship goods around the world? Nothing. But when logistics changes, then the business model of manufacturing changes. You don't need to factor in the cost of shipping. Maybe you can start producing everything in one large factory in one place, and you ship everything around the world for cheap. And if that happens, then where do you think workers are going to go and live? They will all move and go and live close to this big factory. And so suddenly, the economy, the technology will lead to business model changes in industries, and that will change the economy, that will change the way people live, and the way the whole planet even looks. That's what we care about. Now, fuel efficiency doesn't improve at this speed. Only digital technologies improve at this speed. But the digital technologies are improving at the speed all over. In fact, these technologies are being applied across industries. There's no industry you can't imagine that is not being affected by this. Agriculture, which we usually consider, the most traditional, old-fashioned of industries, it's already a big data enterprise, largely. And retail, of course, is a whole story, and there's many more. So when this happens, and these many technologies change so rapidly and affect so many industries, we really enter a new style of word, a new type of word. It's a word we like to call VUCA. Are you familiar with VUCA? Have you heard about it before? Okay, VUCA is an acronym for these 4 characteristics of change that we experience today. And they are volatility, which means that change is faster and more sudden than ever before. Uncertainty, it means that you don't know what's going to change next. You don't know where the change is going to come from. Complexity is because the world is so interconnected that any change somewhere is going to create ripple effects and create change somewhere else. The last one is ambiguity. Change is changing so that it's very hard for us to understand whether something happens and it's good or bad. So I remember having this conversation with, I'm not going to tell you the names or even the company, but they were oil executives. And I asked them, so what do you think if the price of oil went up 40% in the next couple of weeks, would that be good or bad for you? They looked at me and said, probably 50-50. And that's the whole point. Change is such that it's both good and bad at the same time. So in this world of fast change and unpredictable and uncertain change, how do you deal with change? And I want to link this to what we're talking about today, which are family businesses, because family businesses are a very unique type of business. How many of you are in a family business? Okay, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Family businesses are a strange entity and type of business to discuss because they are driven at the same time by 2 very different, distinct, and sometimes conflicting logics. I'm just going to show you the slide. I don't want to spend time on the slide. But see, the logic of a family is that of sharing, of being risk-averse and protect each other and make sure that we make decisions that are good just for us, for the long term. It's driven by socialistic values. We care for each other. Business is pretty much the opposite if you think about it. We are competitive. We want to innovate. We want to bring about change. So how do you manage an entity that needs to respond at the same time to these 2 types of logic? You can just scratch your head a little bit. Or you go and look into one of the family businesses and you realize that most of the time, in very unpredictable and creative ways, family businesses balance these 2 tendencies that seem to pull them apart. And this is the power, the secret power of family business. They have the ability to navigate ambiguity and uncertainty and come up with creative responses. And so that makes them especially suitable for this time of change. I have 5 minutes, or I've been speaking for 5 minutes? I only have 5. Okay. So, these entities seem especially suited for this time and age when change comes more than ever before. Sorry, I think I would normally click. Alright. But not everything is easily reconciled. In fact, some questions will always remain. So think about who should have shares in a family business. Should all family members have the same shares? Because that's good for the family. But is it good for the ownership and for the control? You know, after the second and third generation, the ownership is so diluted that no one can make decisions anymore. It's great for the family, possibly not great for the business, and not great for the ownership. So you need to strike some balances that are quite hard to balance. And one of them is, how much do you innovate? How much do you change? How much do you have to live up to the business model and the organization that was set up by the founder? You know, when I teach a lot of students who come from family businesses, and they come to my classes and I teach them fantastic stuff about AI, blockchain, innovative business models. And then they go home and they sit down with their father or their grandfather and say, "Dad, why don't we do this?" And they look at the parents, look at them and say, "What we've been doing otherwise for 50 years. Why should we change now?" And that's the big difficulty that people who come from family businesses encounter in the face of these tensions. So I'm going to skip straight to my conclusion. Whatever you've been doing for 50 years is great. You should not quit it. You should keep doing it, in fact, and do it well. Because that gives you the revenues and the resources and whatever you need to succeed today. I want to show you this graph quickly. Look, I'm a professor, so I can't give a talk without a graph. Otherwise it looks like a bit cheap. Right? So there's a graph. But so on the horizon you have time frame. You have different moments in the future. At the beginning you have the near-term future, the next couple of years maybe. And then as you go further down, you have 10 years, 20 years, and then it's the future. And what you see, those curves going up and down, what they really say is that certain business models are especially well suited for the business of today. That's the top one. But then over time, we know all too well that whatever succeeds today won't be successful in 15 or 20 years. Something else will get better eventually. And something else will get better, inshallah, in the very distant future. So what we really tell business, family businesses, is don't stop. Whatever you've been doing so successfully for so many years, keep doing that really well. But at the same time, start planning for whatever's coming next. So we have some research that suggests where you should put your resources, how much you should invest at different time horizons. But I'm not going to talk about it today. You can download the slides, you can get the slides at any point in time. You can reach out to me at any point in time. The only thing I wanted to say, I'm writing a book that discusses many of these topics. I'm not selling it to you because it's not out yet. If you come back in a month or two, I'll try to sell it to you. Not today. But what I really want to tell you is that as the world becomes more VUCA, as we were saying, businesses have to start planning across different time horizons. And I believe that family businesses are especially well suited for this ambiguity of thinking at the same time about today, tomorrow, and the distant future. I don't think I have even one more minute, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you want to get the slides, you can take a photo of the QR code and download them. Was it good? Thank you. I think